Alright, so what's going on, guys? We're gonna take a look at some of the basic features in Maya just to get us started creating 3D models. Right, so when you open up Maya, then you're gonna come to this screen. You just hit OK. You don't have to have this. You can just click off of that if you don't want it to show you on startup. I'm gonna hit OK. Alright, so very intimidating looking desktop with the first time that you use it, but we're just going to kind of jump straight in to make it a bit easier. Now, as you can see, all of these right here, these are all blue because right now I'm in the curves and surfaces modeling section. So I'm going to go to poly modeling, which is what you guys would probably want to start off with. And in that, we've got a series of basic geometric polygon meshes. So we've got a sphere, a cube, a cylinder, a cone, a torus, a plane, and a disc, right? So if we click on any one of these, then that will create that here in our viewport. So just click the square, the cube, sorry, and now we've got a cube appear. So if we can use the middle mouse button to scroll, to zoom in and out by scrolling up and scrolling down. To navigate around, if we hold down the Alt key, ALT on your keyboard, and click our left mouse button, then that will allow us to pan around our cube. We could also hold Alt and press down the middle mouse button, and that will allow us to navigate around. Okay, so now we've got our cube, but we want to do something with it, right? Let's make some adjustments. So here in our tool palette, we have our selection tool, we have our lasso tool, our paint selection tool, our move tool, our rotate tool, and our scale tool. Now when we click onto these, then that will give us a new little gizmo appear, which will allow us to do whichever one we have associated with that particular feature. So here we can see we've got the Y, the X, and the Z planes. So if we click onto that, then that will allow us to move our cube up and down, left and right, and backwards and forwards. So of course that will be adjusted depending on where we are. We could also grab the center and move that around just by clicking on that one there. And we could do the same thing with the rotate. So if we click on the rotate tool, then it will allow us to rotate on different axes. And scale tool is the same. So we could zoom out, we can make it wider, taller, and scale it in proportion by clicking on that center. Across here we have our more information about our cube. So if we were to click onto our polycube 1, then this allows us to make adjustments to our cube. So here again we have the height, the width, the height, and the depth. So just similarly to what we just done, well, it is the same as what we just done with our scale tool. But what this also allows us to do is this allows us to create subdivisions. Now right now our cube is not divided up, so if we wanted to make adjustments to specific parts of that cube, then it would just adjust each of these faces as a whole. So if we hold down the right mouse button, then this will allow us to adjust our mesh in different ways. So our mesh is made up of faces, which are these sections here. So these cool sections here, which are flat, those are our faces. It's made up of edges. The edges are these edges here, so we can select those edges, and vertex or vertices, which are these little points in the corner. So we can adjust each of these individually, or we can select groups of them to adjust as a whole. So if we go back to object mode. So when we select object mode, that's when our entire cube goes green. That's when we're moving it as a whole. If we create a series of subdivisions, so divisions within our mesh, let's subdivide the width. So right now it's in 1. Now it's subdivided into 2 parts, 3 parts, 4 parts, and the height also. So we've divided it that way. As you can see, the depth, so it's at the height and the width, but the depth hasn't been. So if we subdivide the depth, so now our cube is divided up. So this may look a little more like something that you may see on like a video game mesh. So if we right click again and we select an edge, so if we go to the edge and we want to make a selection of one of these edges, we can simply select that edge by left clicking. We can go to our move tool, our rotate or our scale tool. Let's go to our move tool, and we can then adjust that particular edge. See, so now we've started to make a difference, and as you can see, it also affects the ones which are connected to it. Let's do the same thing with a face. So we're going to right click and we're going to go to face mode. So now it's going to allow us to select any one of these flat faces, and we're going to adjust that in the same way. So we're going to go to our move tool and we're going to select that and we're going to pull that out. And of course we can also select a vertex or vertices by selecting and again using our move tool. So what these tools do, they allow us to adjust the mesh that we have that we've created, right? Allowing us to create whatever it is that we choose. If we want to create a character or anything, you know, in 3 dimensions. But these tools allow us to do that. Of course, we've also got the rotate. So if we wanted to select, let's go to select a face. Select this face. Let's pull it out slightly. And if we wanted to then rotate that, then we can. So you could see how that affects that particular face. And a slight twist. Okay, so that's how we divide up, or that's how we create a simple mesh. That's how we divide it up using subdivisions from our poly menu, and then we adjust either the edge, the face, or the vertex. If we wanted to then go back and just select it as a whole and move it around, then we can do with our object mode and our move tool. But say for example we wanted to then introduce something else. So say for example, if that's the body of our character, we wanted to introduce a cylinder. So we've brought in our cylinder now. We're going to adjust the scale of it by going to our scale tool. We're going to select the center point and we're going to reduce that right the way down. We're going to go back up to our move tool and we're going to place that roughly in the center of that. So now what we have is we have 2 separate meshes. Yep, so we've got that weird kind of body and that neck. If we wanted to combine those 2 meshes so that it is now one, so it becomes one mesh, well, before we do that, let's widen the bottom. So what we're going to do now is we're going to make a selection. So we've got our cylinder selected. We're going to go to our vertex tool. We're going to click and drag. Now we've selected all of these bottom vertex or vertices. We're going to go to our scale tool. We're going to go to that center point so it does it uniformly, and we're going to let's increase that, yeah, so it does it uniformly. What that does is that gives us this nice upside down kind of cone shape. We're going to go back to our move tool and we're going to make that slightly longer. We're then going to go to object mode and we're going to move it down. So now we've got a cool neck kind of shape. And let's select both. So now what I've just done is I've just clicked and dragged, and as you can see, just to separate between the 2, we've got the green and we've got the white meshes. But if we want to bring those together, if we want to join them together, if we go up to our options, we go to mesh, booleans and union, this then becomes a single mesh. So now we have one mesh. Alright, so now this is joined together as one. So if we then wanted to go in and adjust a face, then we could select a particular face. We could move that. We could move that out if we just wanted to have one part, protruding, and that is completely up to us. Right, but that is just the very, very basics of how you bring in a mesh, so we can see exactly what it is that we're doing. If we bring in a mesh, we can adjust the subdivisions of that mesh. We can adjust the vertices, the edges, and the faces by right-clicking and selecting which mode we want to adjust, and then going to our respective tool in the tool palette. Hopefully that kind of warms you guys slightly to using using Maya, and seeing that it's not as super scary as it may seem. What you may find is that you may bring in a new polygon, or say for example if we bring in a polycube, and we can't see it because it might be hidden behind the model that we've been creating. So say for example this model was much bigger, and when we brought in that cube we couldn't see it. What we can do is we can switch to wireframe mode. We could either do that by just clicking this button here, or by hitting the hotkey F on our keyboard, and that will allow us to be able to see between or see through our model, so we can see our cube right there. And to switch back to shaded mode, we just hit 5 on the keyboard, or this button right here, and then that will show us what we've modeled. Something that you may find when you're modeling in 3D is that you need to repeat, or you need to duplicate something. It might be, I don't know, like a section of a hilt of a sword or something like that. And rather going through the whole process of modeling that specific section again, you can really easily duplicate sections by going to object mode. So right click, we're already in object mode, but just to show you. So by going into object mode, going to our move tool, and if we hold down the shift key on our keyboard, and you see where it says clone, and then just drag it out, and that will allow us to duplicate what we've modeled previously. Alright, so it's just a kind of just something that you really need to know, so it will help save time when you guys are modeling.